Hi, I'm Heather. Welcome to class. Today we're going to do some work to mobilise the upper back, the thoracic spine. Before we begin, if you find this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. We're going to start in a supported variation of Matsyasana, the fish pose. We'll be using a blade-shaped brick, or if that's too strong, then a flat brick underneath the upper back. So when I talk about the upper back, I'm referring to the spine that sits here between your shoulder blades. So the brick can potentially be all the way up to the top there of the thoracic region, but certainly not into the neck, and most definitely not down into the lumbar region. So think about the thoracic spine being directly behind the sternum here. So if you can manage blade-shaped brick, you might want some support for your neck and head. Depends on the mobility of your thoracic spine, but also your neck, the cervical spine. So you may want to have a rolled up blanket to offer support to the neck. As the neck comes into extension, we tilt the head backwards. Now, if you suffer from vertigo, that is, you get dizzy when you take your head backwards, then you'll need a brick and maybe a blanket on top of the brick here. But you'll still manage to mobilize the upper back. So we sit in front of the brick. Now, don't sit right up against it because that means it'll be coming into your lumbar spine. So sit perhaps even a hand's length away from the brick. And then when you lie back, just feel, where is the brick? Should definitely be between the ribs, not down so low that the ribs are not there, and should definitely feel like it's underneath that sternal region. Then when you take the head back, you don't want the brick pressing into your neck, so make sure it's not so high up. If you need support for your head and neck, as I said, use a rolled up blanket. Some of you will manage without that support, in which case you might like to hold the head as you take the head backwards. The head can reach back towards the floor. Then you can turn your palms up, extend the legs. Let's have the feet hip width apart. Press the thighs down, lengthen through the inner feet. So with the palms facing up, shoulder tips are down, and you observe that expression of lift and spread in the sternum, across the chest and the collarbone area, but also you experience the mobility or the mobilization of your upper back. Now, you might like to explore taking your arms overhead. So you catch hold of the elbows, stretch the arms overhead. Now, this can free up the neck somewhat. You might find that the back of the neck feels a bit easier to be in this position of extension when you take your arms overhead. But it may be quite strong in your shoulders. So if the shoulders feel a little bit achy or you get pins and needles in your fingers, then perhaps you rest the arms by the sides of the body again. But can you relax the spinal muscles onto the brick? Swap the cross of the forearms. So the opposite forearm is in front. Pay attention to your breath. Can you regulate the breath? Steadying the inhalations, exhalations. Then release your arms. Now, you might like to hold the head to offer some support to the neck as you lift the head up and then press into your hands to come to sit up. Then we're going to move to using 3 bricks. Now, if you don't have a third brick, you could potentially use something stable. Maybe it's a couple of thick books to create your third brick. So we replace that blade-shaped brick now with a tall brick, And then you're going to have a flat brick and a tall brick. So this is again for the thoracic spine, the spine between the shoulder blades, directly underneath the sternum. And now this is for the head. So you'll see that we've got the height of the head higher than the height of the thoracic spine. And for some people, if the thoracic spine is not so mobile and the neck is quite stiff, then you might want even more height here underneath the head. So you're going to have to navigate that. But once more, I sit forward in front of the brick, not against the brick, and I want to hold the brick as I'm coming back. So I stabilize the brick and I can make sure it's straight. It's not tilting to the left side, to the right side, and it's directly where I want it to be, between the shoulder blades. And then perhaps you can hold the head if you need to support your head and neck when you bring your head down. So the head's supported. Now we can bring the legs into simple cross legs here, and if that doesn't suit you, you can certainly stretch the legs out straight like we had before. Turn your palms up, and we can observe with the palms up, the shoulder tips can release down. Chest again is broad. Observe the quality of your breath. Then we're going to challenge the shoulders, but this time instead of catching hold of the elbows and taking the arms overhead, we're going to reach the arms overhead. So track your elbows in the same line as the shoulders. So as you're reaching the hands over, the elbows are bent. Reach the hands over to catch hold of the brick that's underneath the head, and reach your hands back if you can towards the back edge of the brick, and keep the elbows tracking shoulder width apart. So the action in the arms is going to impact the lift of the chest. Feel how the armpit chest can lift and lengthen. Again, notice your breath. Regulate your breath. Now, for a moment, let's release the arms and we'll swap the cross of the legs. So opposite shin in front. Again, simple cross-leg expression. Now, as we take the arms overhead, interlock the fingers. Stretch the arms straight. So the palms are going to still face you. Elbows are straight as you take your arms up and overhead. So when you take your arms overhead, it can offer you the opportunity to perhaps lengthen the back of the neck more and reach the arms, the hands away from the chest before you think about trying to descend the arms. Now, the reason we're working with fingers interlocked, if we have the hands apart, shoulder width apart, often what I witness is one shoulder is more mobile than the other, and one hand more willingly reaches the floor compared to the other hand. And so with the fingers interlocked, we're levelizing that action. So both arms are able to work evenly. Now, that being said, you might feel more of a stretch in one shoulder relative to the other, but that would be an indication perhaps that shoulder is generally stiffer than the other. Now, let's swap the interlock. So whether you want to take your arms back overhead to have a look, change the interlock of the fingers, opposite index finger on top. Again, keeping the elbows straight, and take your arms overhead. Throat relaxed, jaw relaxed, and can you relax the spinal muscles onto the brick? Make sure you keep the upper arm bones engaged in the shoulder joint. Don't try to lengthen the upper arm bone away from the shoulder joint. Okay, let's come up. Take the arms up. You might like to hold your head as you bring yourself up. Press into your hands and come to sit all the way up. Let's just sit in neutral. We observe the impression of the brick in the back as that impression slowly dissipates. But just notice if there is the inclination, the tendency to go back to old habits of dropping the chest and rounding the back. Can you keep the chest lifted, shoulders rolling back? Now we have another exercise that we're going to work with. We're going to take our mat back to the wall and bring a chair in. As I said, we'll take our mat to the wall. We'll have our chair here on the mat against the wall so that the chair doesn't slide anywhere. And then we can put a blanket over the seat of the chair so that it's overlapping the front of the seat, which is where our upper back is going to be. So we're going to start with the shoulder blades, upper back and head on the seat. Let's sit first and then we'll take the hips forward. So as you take the hips forward, bring your upper back, your shoulder blades onto the seat, lie back so that the head can start on the seat. Hold on to the handle of the chair so the hands are up the top of the handle. Keep the elbows in, shoulder width apart. Start with your hips up, the same level as the knees and the chest. And then we slowly lower the hips. So we require the back to arch a little. And as you lower the hips, you lift the head up and you feel the front of the seat is around the lower shoulder blade area. So it's causing that thoracic spine to mobilize as you lower the hips towards the floor. Whether the hips touch the floor or not may depend on the height of your chair. It might also depend on the length of your back and the capacity of your back to arch here. And then we come back up. So lift the hips again. And let's go again. So as you lower the hips, you lift the head up. Keep the elbows tracking, shoulder width apart. You lower the hips towards the floor. Again, doesn't matter if the hips touch or don't touch, but just feeling how that upper back is being pressed forward with the front of the seat. And then again, lift up. Lift the hips up. And once more. Come down. Take your hips down, but also back towards the legs of the chair. So you're asking more of that upper back to arch. And then come back up. Rest the head and the neck. And then we'll finally come out of this pose. So lower your hips all the way to the floor. And let's just sit up straight. So if it suits you, you can sit in simple cross legs to sit up straight. If not, stick the legs out in front of you. And again, we observe the impression of the chair in that thoracic spine and just allow it to slowly dissipate. Once more, be mindful that you're not dropping the chest and rounding your back. Keep your chest up, shoulders roll back. Now, the back may have been feeling perhaps a little bit uncomfortable with those actions that we were implementing. A twist can often help dissipate the feeling. So just sit forward enough that you can twist. And if sitting in simple cross legs doesn't work for you, perhaps you can sit on your chair and twist. But let's do an easy twist to the right side. Then to the left. So an easy, gentle twist. To the right side again. And to the left. Make sure you're lifting your lumbar spine, lifting your chest. Back to center. Swap the cross of the legs. And again, sitting straight. Gentle twist to the right. To the left. To the right again. And to the left again. And back to center. Let me know in the comments below how you went with that practice. How does your upper back feel when you ask it to work in that way? If you enjoyed practicing with me, I invite you to check out the video library on my website. With over 400 full-length classes, there's a lot to choose from. I'm adding new classes to that video library every week. heatherkitchenyoga.com.au. I'll put the link in the description box below. And you can start with a 7-day free trial. That's it for today. Thanks for joining me. For more in-depth teaching, check out the video library on my website, heatherkitchenyoga.com.au. The link is in the description box below.